Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Pick Your Brain Podcast, a platform to showcase creatives, social issues, mental health, and community empowerment.
That's what's up.
Yes. And since we are done with the introductions, we can get into our topics that we are talking about.
Should we tell them how everything is kind of like implemented and what our plans are?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, just to give a little more heads up on how we're going to do this podcast, y'all, basically, 1 week we'll be talking about a certain topic, and then the other week we'll be interviewing someone from the community or someone that we know, whether it's a community activist, creative, etc., etc. So that's going to be a whole little like routine of everything. And every now and then we'll do little checkups on our lives, interview each other's again, because, shit changes.
That's the plan.
All right, and today's topic we'll be talking about emotional healing. Do you have a crying one? Wow.
It's not really a crying one, but I guess it goes well.
Yeah.
Is that the sound Kyle makes when there's no more ketchup?
Yeah.
Really, I do. If you were to picture me and not having my ketchup at a restaurant, I would imagine that background playing.
Yes, a few days ago at work, I had to eat a hot dog with no ketchup. It was a dry hot
disgusting.
dog. Yeah, because my coworker went to Wiener Schnitzel and asked for a hot dog, but he didn't get me any ketchup.
Ooh.
And I was like, I guess I'll eat it dry.
I cry when I eat it without ketchup. I'm gonna be
I was
real.
just imagining, like, oh, maybe.
The last time I hung out with Kyle months ago, I told him there was no ketchup. This guy went on Spotify and played "The Way Life Goes" by Lil Uzi Vert. I was like, bro, is you serious, bro?
What are you talking
you should
about,
just,
bro?
like, keep one of those.
One more
False
thing
claims.
before we get into our stuff. Are we going to introduce ourselves? Like, just say our name and stuff?
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Who are you, man? Are you Jake from State Farm or something, bro?
Oh, okay. I'll explain later. But what it is? What's up? It's
Okay.
your boy Jonathan. Holla at me. No, don't. I'm not single.
What the heck? What is that?
That wasn't funny, bro. You hear that? That's crickets for
That
you.
does not sound like cricket.
You're not going to get home and auto insurance, right? Remember?
Yeah. What I can folks is Mike D. What's good?
Oh, why you're looking at me so weird? I'm Simone.
I am Kyle De Carlos. Yee.
All right,
Let's
so
go.
Yep, that's us. So should we just get right into it?
Yeah.
All right. So my
Jump right
first
in.
question is, what is your guys' definition of emotional healing?
Healing.
Oof. Y'all.
Everyone's
Like,
thinking
I
about
don't
that.
know.
I have to really think about that.
Well,
real
do you
quick.
want me to say my definition? And then
Go ahead, you go then.
Break it down, break it
You
down.
already got something for it, huh?
Okay. Yes, I've been thinking about this very much.
Because you're the one who made the questions.
Yeah.
Cheater.
Okay, well, I'm part of the mental. I'm the mental health.
She
not,
is.
not expert, but I.
The person in this.
Advocate. The mental health advocate. That's what's
Yes,
up.
yes, yes,
Advocate,
yes.
yes.
Advocate, yeah, advocate.
Yeah. I was kidding.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
okay. What's happening?
Don't worry, I'm not lit today. I'm good.
Anyways, my definition of emotional healing is no longer having a negative, not connotation. What am I saying? Negative emotional reaction to something that triggers you. You know.
Mm.
So.
Healing. I think one thing in regards to healing is really understanding what is the root cause of that trauma specifically, right?
Yeah.
I think there's specific things that happen on a daily that you interact with the world and something triggers you. And I think sometimes we assume it's that moment, it's that thing that we are actually triggered by. But it's really rooted in terms of like our trauma, our childhood trauma, our experiences. And so those are the things. And what does it mean to heal? It's really to be able to understand our own trauma, our own experience, and really those are rooted in those things. So yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Kyle?
Healing. That is a very deep question, to be honest with you. Let's
It's
see.
hard to articulate.
Yeah, it's hard
what
to
it is.
articulate, but
Everyone
I
just kind of knows, like, oh yeah,
yeah,
healing.
from my perception, what's the definition of healing, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the definition of healing is basically that path to the light, essentially, kind of seeing things in a more brighter way rather than a dark way altogether. You know what I mean? There's a quote that I truly live by. It's tatted on my
The Tupac
chest.
one?
Yeah, the one closest to my heart. I think I mentioned in the first podcast.
Yeah.
For every dark night, there's a brighter day.
Hey.
altogether by Tupac Shakur. And there is a lot of truth to that altogether because, you know, when we're going through that darkness, that very difficult time in our lives, there comes a sense of healing. However, the problem is if you do not go towards that pathway of healing, it goes to a pathway of destruction, which could hurt others or even hurt yourself. So that's why healing is a very important thing that, you know, we need as humans in order to move forward with life.
Yeah. Jonathan?
Yeah, you know, Kyle got a message of healing right above his left tit, you know what I'm saying?
Nothing wrong with that.
No, but I think for me, healing is finding equilibrium, finding balance, because in reality, there's always going to be good days and bad days in life. And so healing is just about trying to find the balance. And something that I've been hearing a lot about, because aside from the podcast, I also do like this, like I kind of do like a Zoom call. It's like, we call it a men's circle, where it's just sort of like, it's a space for men and we converse with each other, see how we're doing. And we trying to talk about we talk about our feelings and emotions and get that resolved, because you know, in society as a man, you're not supposed to really display that sort of stuff. And so one of the things one of the members talked about was not necessarily about there being a good and a bad. It's more so like balance and challenge. And so it's just sort of like in life, you're going to have moments of balance, and then other times you're going to have moments of challenges.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of trying to balance that out and trying to find peace within yourself, you know. And it's not something that you achieve that's the pinnacle, that's it. It's something that's perpetual and ongoing. So it's always this, you know, I don't want to say struggle, but it's always progress, you know, to trying to find that balance and stuff like that. So I think that's how I would define emotional healing.
Hey, you do that with Chino Lokes, huh?
How do you know about that?
Because I was just speaking to him last night. Shout out to the boy Chino Lokes, Alexander Nguyen. He's our boy who's graduating in the ethnic studies at SJSU for his graduate degree.
Yep. You know what it is, bro. You know
Shout out. We'll probably get him on the podcast down the road, though. To be honest with you, he's a really dope guy.
Dude,
I'll be down.
All right. That was really good. Good job, guys. I'm just kidding. But next is, why do you guys think it's so difficult for people to heal? You know, like, why is it so hard for people to accept what has happened to them in order for them to heal from it and move on?
God damn, Simone.
Damn, you really thought about these. Sheesh.
what's the question again?
Literally, these questions is what I think about on a daily when I'm just sitting by myself. I'm just like,
Okay.
And now you're just putting it out there. I mean, that's what people think they heard.
Can I phone a friend? Is that kind of? Can I phone a friend?
Go ahead.
Okay, since I'm joking and talking bullshit, I think, you know, and this is what I mentioned in my introductory video, right? Where a lot of the times it's just ourselves beating up ourselves, you know what I'm saying? And it's always harder to try to, like, you know, as I mentioned, right? It's always harder to try to find balance within yourself when you've gone through a number of experiences, or if you've gone through traumatic events and that sort of stuff, because it's just sort of like it lives within you. And it's whether you've like passed a year or 2 or 5 or 10, it doesn't never fully go away. It's something that's always going to be, you know, maybe in the back of your head, but it's always something you're going to live with. And so like just trying to overcome those demons within oneself like that, like in my case, that's always been my issue, where it's just sort of like finding balance has been hard, because there are some days where I feel great and I feel like I'm doing well in life. And then there's other days where I'm just like, dude, and this and that. And so it's just sort of like beating myself down, despite having you folks and others being very supportive and, you know, just, I guess in a sense, acknowledging what I've done, what I've accomplished, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I guess it's basically what makes the journey to healing difficult. That's what the question is.
Yeah, like why do you think it's difficult for people
to
start the journey and to continue on with the journey?
So I think with it all comes down to acceptance of what your situation or whatever you're going through struggle is. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I feel like for a lot of people, you know, you wouldn't really understand it unless you like go through it, right? And in moments like those, people just feel so alone. So whether it's not having any family or community around them, that's kind of what leads to that. But you know, of course, you can't put it on that. So from the sense of a more individual level, I think what it is just destruction in the mind, in the heart, and in your intentions, and just basically letting that kind of progress more and more and more until you get to a point where you either wake up or you destroy. And when you destroy, it's the worst thing in the world. And there's things that could happen, but sometimes what the universe does is it doesn't let you fully destroy. It gives you a chance or a fighting opportunity to fix it before it leads to that. But if you don't fix it in that moment of whatever the universe was trying to help you with, or God, whoever you believe in, right? It could lead into something such as death, hurting someone else really bad, hurting yourself. And, that's where I feel like it leads to above and beyond that.
Yeah.
I think before I answer the question, I think just a quick PSA. We are not professional in any way.
Yeah,
this is our opinions and our experiences, and we just want to share with folks. And so, don't take it as like something that
us trying to tell you what to do and how to heal. It's just based off of our experiences and what we have
endured.
For sure. So, in regards to the question and why is it hard to even start the healing process? I think again, it's one thing is that we might react to certain things at the moment in time. And again, back to my point, is not understanding the real root cause of why we get triggered and, where is that coming from? I think in regards to like healing, it really, there's this stigmatized idea of like, having a counselor or seeing a psychiatrist is seen as something negative, or you're crazy, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but I think, we have to normalize that idea that we have to be able to actually be able to sit down with a professional, and to be able to sit down with them and be able to help us figure out what it is that's going on internally in terms of our own struggle, in terms of our own experience, and be able to break that down in essence. And the idea of healing is also, it's a struggle because we look at healing in this society as something that we do ourselves, but never really look at it as that, we have to do it not just by ourselves, but with the people around us, with the help and the support of our family, our close ones, and the people, and it's just, it's a collective process, whether it's a help with a professional, with the help with your colleagues, the help with your friends. So healing in essence, yes, it's hard. So it's not something that you can do on your own. It's harder for sure, but I think it becomes much easier in terms of healing when you process that with outside of you, also with the people around you. So yeah.
And going off of that, I feel like with healing, in my going about life and noticing how I have healed and how others around me have healed, there's this misconception between curing yourself and healing. I feel like sometimes people think healing means curing, but curing means to go back to original state that you have been in. You often hear, I just want to go back to normal. I just want to be my normal self. When in reality, that person is gone, because you can't move past thinking like, oh, I just want to go back, because you can't erase what you have experienced. Whatever traumatic event has happened to you, you can't erase it. So instead of thinking, I want to go back to normal, I want to be myself again, you kind of have to think like, okay, so this has happened to me. How is it affecting me? And how am I going to move on to my day-to-day life having had experienced this? So that's why I think it's very difficult, because it comes back to accepting that this had actually happened, Because me personally, I've, in many things I've had to heal from, it's just like, dang, like, I want to go back to the old Simone. Where is she? And I'm like, yo, she's dead. She left.
Yeah.
She's gone because she didn't experience what you have experienced. So I think that's why it's also difficult for people to heal.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think that's real. That's true in essence, that people they have a hard time seeing themselves as a new person, and they want to maintain what they know of themselves. And so that's the idea of the resistance of change. But in actuality, you're not changing; you're growing.
Yeah.
Like an apple tree doesn't change into an orange tree. You know what I mean? You just grow.
Exactly.
And you change, but the change is growth. Not in essence of like, because, I think I've seen it in terms of my own circle of people, like, oh, well, I don't want to change. I don't want to be. I won't be the same person.
Yeah,
And so,
it's like-
and then they have the acceptance of themselves as is versus like understanding that you can grow and you can change for the better.
Yeah.
You know, I used to. Well, I think for me, my own experience, I used to say these things. That's just the way I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I used to say that a
You know
lot
what I
too.
mean? That's the way I am.
that's
you
what
I
know?
used to say that a lot too.
Right, and so then you become resistant to something that would serve you,
Yeah.
serve your interest, because you want to maintain what you think that what you are versus understanding that you can grow,
Yeah.
as a better
exactly.
person. In
Yeah.
essence, yeah.
And like when I say like, oh, that person's dead, I don't necessarily mean literally like that person is gone, because like obviously we'll keep parts of ourselves, we don't completely change into a new person. We just change how we go about life sometimes. Like for example, if you fucking go over a speed bump and you freaking crack your car or something, you won't do that again, like you won't go that fast or something like that. Just to put
Yeah.
it in that way.
Yeah.
So
What you spoke about heavily resonates with me, because I find myself often trapped in that same cycle where I am saying, I wish I can go back to, this former version of myself, or more so going back to a specific period in time. And that brought to my attention how, I'm currently going to UC Santa Cruz, and funny enough, I've been blessed with, I guess, like more financial opportunities going to Santa Cruz because of a scholarship and grant and that sort of stuff. But I miss back when I was going to De Anza, because I had my own clique. I really felt a stronger sense of self, a stronger sense of identity, in the sense of really, because this is when I was barely finding out about ethnic studies and taking all these courses and learning my history, my culture, all this sort of stuff. So I felt very empowered, and I just had like a different sort of like
Swag.
a higher a higher sense of self-esteem. And so like I just missed those days, and that's when I met my professor, who's my homie. So I just had all this. And afterwards, like once I transferred, like as I always say, I've gone from 100 to 0. And so trying to rebuild and just struggling in that, and then just not really performing well right now. Well, actually not right now, but within like my transition. And so I'm always saying to myself, like, damn, I wish I could go back to like 2016, 2018, because that was like, in my sense, so far what I've lived, that was my prime time, bro. Like that was where I was at,
Yeah.
100. And so it's just sort of like, as you said, like that that is no longer a version of me, in a sense. Like that version is dead, but it's not completely gone for it. It's just, changes and growth. And what you said too, Mike, it's just that resistance, and
I don't want to.
I want to
It's
be
kind of like that little kid in you.
I want to
you
go back to that, but it's not gonna happen.
You want to
Yeah.
maintain.
Yeah.
It's not a loss in essence, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's actually learning from that experiences, and what can you take from the experience to practice it into the new condition. So what changes the condition, not you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're still you, and the essence of you is still there. The condition changed. So then what does it mean to actually practice again and learn new practices and to be able to grow again? And so that's really what life is in essence. Like, we are thrown into new things all the time.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to actually like learn, figure out how to struggle and learn from the lessons and, grow. And that's what we do. We grow.
Yeah.
And like change is inevitable, everything is in constant motion. And I feel like not only are people afraid of change, like I guess if you could say that you're afraid of change, you're afraid of healing as well, because healing is change.
Yeah.
Yeah. To kind of add on to, so Simone touched on acceptance. Jonathan talked about, the past self, always thinking about that. And then you touched on, you just talked about it. You were talking about, your main thing was about growing, right? Yeah, just one thing I like to share too. I feel like, and then this is also kind of what I talked about too. You have to make those set changes, or else it leads to destruction. Just a couple weeks ago, I think that happened to me. And to kind of put it out there, so the old me would have a lot of panic attacks when I was a kid altogether. And Jonathan knows, I think he's seen like a lot of the worst of them with my childhood altogether. And I dealt with that. And for a while, this past couple years, like 2-3 year. I haven't had one in a while, and I had one as of recently because of some things I was dealing with, and I feel like in that moment in itself, instead of sulking and like asking myself why did I have this, I kind of accepted that it was like that, and this panic attack could have ultimately led to hurting myself or hurting others. And what happened in that instant altogether, I was yelling outside in the apartments, and the cops could have came and they could have done something to me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of glad I learned from that. And from there, people around me checked up on me. One of my mentors, his name is Lloyd. Really a shout out to Lloyd, by the way. He kind of told me, and he made this little thing of reminding me that, I'm like a rock. And a lot of us are like a rock. A lot of us take these struggles and battles that constantly hit us. But as a rock, we have to keep taking those things and keep pushing forward. And I think just the learning experience since then, I've learned a lot about myself within these past couple of weeks. And I'm on a very big path of healing because I understand that I can't hurt anyone else. Because if that does happen again, I don't know how bad it can turn out. So healing is always important, especially for those that you love, by the way. Also, that's like kind of like the moral that I want to teach from my experience altogether.
And healing is also important for yourself, because in essence, if you don't help yourself, you're not helping anyone around you. How do you expect to help everyone around you if you can't even help yourself? I like to say, how do you expect to give someone $20 if all you have is $5?
Exactly.
So
you can give $5.
Yeah, I can give you $5. But
one thing I wanted to bounce off of. One thing I wanted to bounce off Mike in terms of the concept of growth. A teacher once told me, "There's no growth in the comfort zone, and there's no comfort in the growth zone."
Right.
And I was just
exactly.
like, as humans, we love comfort.
Yeah.
So it's like I mentioned earlier. It's just about finding that balance, man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when the struggle actually brings growth, struggle brings new things and new ideas, because a struggle is like, your old idea and you're introducing a new idea and then you struggle with it. And so at that moment, there's a road that forks and you get to choose whether you want to cement the way you are or actually take a road in terms of what it means to grow.
Yeah. That's true.
What I mean?
It sheds a different perspective and light on how you handle things with life.
Yeah.
And if you go through that same situation again, you know how to go through it.
Yeah,
Or you know how to
exactly.
help someone. Because once you learn that lesson from that sense of healing, you can teach it to someone else. It's your responsibility after that.
Right. Also, to add on to that, it's your own well-being. It actually has an impact on the people around you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, what does it mean to be at your best and be the best that you can be? So you can actually have a better impact on the people around you, especially the people that you love. And sometimes people might not see that or understand that your well-being also impacts the people around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so so healing happens. There's what do you call it, self-care and all those things. But I think there's a collective care also.
Yeah.
Don't forget the
Agreed.
aspect of again, reminder to the folks sometimes it's not your family. So sometimes you have to build your own tribe in essence.
Exactly.
Build your own group of people to be able to support you in terms of be able to understand you in the way the things that you're struggling with, and be able to challenge you to grow. And so just a reminder that sometimes those conditions are not in the family system, but build your own tribe. Whether it's in the family, whether it's your friends, whether it's the things that you do that you love, and you run into people that do the things the same thing. And so again, build your tribe, the people around you. Yeah.
Y'all know what time it is. It is the absurdity of the day, brought to you by DJ Asthmatic.
Ew. Brought to you by
All right, so y'all finna get a little ooh out of this one. I don't know why.
Okay.
I just was searching up something today when I was working on my job. I do this FaceTime session with someone, right? I help her go through activities, and then I was searching up something, and then for some reason this thing came up. I wonder why it was invented. So I searched up, why was the chainsaw invented? All right, and I thought this was very absurd. Originally, a small knife would be used to remove bits of bone and cartilage around the pelvis to make more room for the baby. But this was found to be way too messy and took a long time. So in the 1780s, 2 doctors invented the chainsaw to make the procedure easier.
The chainsaw.
The chainsaw.
So it originated as a medical device.
I knew
to
it.
take
Why
out
did I
the
know?
baby.
Why did I know? Why did I know?
What do you mean you know? What do you mean?
I don't know. I had the
knew?
feeling. I was like, it's to cut up some body parts or something like that.
Oh my God, you have a very psycho thing to.
You call
You're a
it
psycho.
Simone, you're so psycho.
You're a
So
psycho.
psycho.
What do you think about that stuff? Weirdo.
I don't, well,
Just kidding.
you're the one that searched it up.
No, that was by accident. I didn't purposely search it up. That was by accident.
You were like, I know he's gonna cut up people.
I knew. I don't
That's
know
what she
how.
said. She the whole time she bit her tongue. It's like I just want to say it.
I'm not crazy, guys. It's just like, you know.
Well, that's the
Thought.
absurdity of the day. Forget about it.
Yeah.
And we got sponsorships right now for this podcast, y'all. So what's the sponsorships, Mike?
Hey, I just want
Drop
to
it.
give a shout out to NAVCON. NAVCON is National Alliance for Filipino Concerns. I am part of NAVCON, part of the local NAVCON in South Bay. And currently there has been 2 typhoons that went through the Philippines. And currently it's the typhoon season. So, we wanted to reach out to folks. And I want to read to what NAVCON's demand or ask. So NAVCON appeals to communities in the U.S. and worldwide to support those affected by these recent devastations in the Philippines. Amidst the ongoing pandemic and effects of Super Typhoon Goni and Typhoon Ulysses, we must take action to support our fellow kababayans affected during this time. So, yeah, we just want to shout out NAVCON and, ask folks to donate. So come check out the link. We have a link. It's basically tinyurl.com. What do you call that? What is that?
Backslash.
Backslash. So tinyurl.com/2020 and then typhoons is TYPHOONS. So check out the link again, tinyurl.com/2020 typhoons, and feel free and please donate no matter what the amount is, and every amount will help, especially for the folks out there again during the pandemic. And then people have to go to evacuation center, and this evacuation center is going to be like packed with people, and so they really need help. And so what does it mean for us to be in the US as Filipino Americans in a privileged position to actually be able to help our folks out there? So yeah, again, NAVCON, National Alliance for Filipino Concern, again tinyurl.com/2020 typhoon. So
We'll put it in our bio.
For
In
sure.
our bio for this
so
podcast.
thank you all if you all donate. So yeah. So that's it.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
What's the next question, Simone? What you
All
got for
right.
us?
Back
So
to the
we're
topic.
gonna
Yeah.
get. Oh, that's my journal entry. Sorry, guys.
Oh, okay.
So I have my notes here. Don't lick the paper. Just kidding.
All right.
We won't peek.
But we're gonna get a little technical here and talk about something that I guess it has been researched. Well, has been researched. There's a lot of books about it. Like if you're looking for further help yourself on healing and stuff, there are the 5 stages of healing, which is the first stage is grief and denial. The second is anger. Third is bargaining. Fourth is depression, and then the last one is acceptance. So, does anyone want to say anything about what they think about these 5 stages, or
What's bargaining? Can you define that a little bit more? With that
so
part?
bargaining is like if you believe in God and stuff or anything like that, you're kind of just like, all right, God, I will never do anything bad if you let me be happy or stuff like that. How you just pray and
okay.
stuff, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I won't do anything bad anymore if you let me get through this. I promise I'll be good. And
Wow.
yeah.
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 Okay. I've known that as the 5 stages of grief. I don't know.
Yeah,
if we
it's
kinda
like the
changed
same
it
thing.
to kind of sound a little more positive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same thing. 5 stages of grief, healing,
Oh, okay.
and yeah.
Oh, okay. Dabda. Hey, okay.
Yeah.
What?
Dabda.
That's what it's called.
Dabda.
Oh.
Yeah,
Denial,
yeah.
anger, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wait, so what was the question?
Depression?
Like, if she-
acceptance?
She wanted if you wanted to add on to anything there or talk about anything specific.
did you want to what are your takes on those 5 stages? What do you think of it, and how do you think it affects you in your healing process? Do you pay attention to it, or are you just kind of science?
Yeah. I mean, not necessarily that it always is going to fall within that order, but I kind of feel like it kind of has that sort of general feel to it, because when something tragic happens to you, the first thing is, denial, just the disbelief of that actually happening. And so, you know, depending on the person and depending on the event, obviously, maybe the series of events change around that sort of stuff. But I feel like it follows like a trajectory, you know, you're in disbelief that something happened, then you get mad, upset. It's like, why me? Like, bruh, this is fucking absurd. This is dumb. Bruh.
Yeah.
And then, you know, jumping into, dude, I swear, God, if you help me out here, I won't watch football for the rest of the season. I will I will cut my toe for you or something like that. I don't know. But like, you know, so it kind of follows like that trajectory. But yeah, ultimately trying to land in the phase stage of acceptance, because you have to undergo a lot of emotions and commotion to truly find that peace, that balance.
Balance.
And also like going off of that, even though there is like, oh yeah, you go through this, and this, and then you'll be okay. It's never linear, you know? There's always like going back and forth and back and forth. So if you are a person who is trying to heal from something, just keep that in mind, how like it's not always going to be easy to get there, you know? You have to go through so many emotions. You're like, all right, I'm at the bargaining stage. Next is depression, you know?
Let's go. We're on the way.
It's not like you're like, okay, I'm depressed. Like, okay, just get through this and then acceptance. Like, I'll be depressed for a little bit.
It like doesn't work like that.
Not to belittle it or not to downplay it, but obviously, you know, it's obviously something serious, and so it can happen various of ways. But you know, it's just guidelines as to what are some of the common stages, experiences or symptoms of you know, undergoing healing.
Pretty much saying like it's normal what you're going through right now, you know, like, oh, you're in denial, that's okay, that's what happens, you know. So
I say, go ahead.
I think the acceptance part in terms of the process, depending on the person, you know, different timeline, right? Someone might take like a short time, and someone might go through all the different cycles of those things,
back and forth,
and it might take a long time, and that in essence like play a role in terms of people's depression. And so, and it's funny, like, you know, this is the first time I actually looked at this stages, and I'm like reflecting on my own struggles, and I'm like, oh shoot, that's what I'm going through. I'm like, so like, I started grief. The grief that, you know, grief like really makes me sad. And not in essence, maybe not denial, but it's grief. The first stage is the grief and denial. So I grieve more in essence, and then it turns into sadness, and sadness turns to anger. And sometimes you throw that anger, sometimes you throw it to the other person, or sometimes you throw it to yourself. And so, and the idea of the bargaining aspect, like, oh, you know, so then maybe this is what I have to do to actually make it work in terms of like the condition. And then going back to the depression, and then you get sad, and you really like kind of isolate yourself, and you don't want to interact with people because you're going through these emotions. And then to a point when you actually are able to actually look at your experience as a whole, and be able to move on and accept that, you know, things has happened, and, you know, we can grow from it and learn from it. But again, like, you know, depending on who's going through these struggles, it's going to be the different timeline, right? So again, what does it look like for us to be able to support and really, you know, shorten those the amount of time for people to actually be able to learn and accept the things that they struggle through. So
I think if anything, this podcast has really helped a lot with people to kind of be inspired and empowered. And I think this is going to be a big thing towards people, whoever is listening out there. One thing I like to add too is with this whole process, sometimes we try to find other avenues to try to avoid these things, whether it's through drugs, through like just not focusing on it and not ever accepting it, right? There's other things, and you know, I've been down that road altogether, and it's not a fun road altogether. It's very difficult to kind of get out of, and you know, it can get to that point where you hit your lowest point and you literally don't know what to do, and you will do anything to kind of take that pain away. And taking that pain away could be just like that short little moment of it going away, but going back to it, you just dig a deeper and deeper and deeper hole. You know what I'm saying? So if there are people that you can reach out to, or programs, you know, do the best that you can and let people know what's good, because sometimes it is hard to get to certain people unless they want to be helped themselves.
Exactly. And like going off of that, obviously, like as a person who has gone through certain things and has healed by many things, I also seeked help within like just like searching stuff up, like searching like how do I get better, how do I heal and stuff. And what I've noticed with myself, and I actually heard it from a TED talk. I'm not sure what TED talk, but it was like people like to say that time heals all, time heals everything, but no, it's really not time. It's what you do with that time that will take you. Because it's like, if you're sitting there not doing anything about it, not going through your emotions, even if it hurts, then you're not going to move past it. You're not going to move through it. And I think for me, even, I would take notes on how to heal. Like, what the hell? Like, who does that? But, like, I was really trying to, like, help myself. But I noticed that once it started working was when I actually, like, just, all right, pen and paper out. That's not helping me. Let me just figure out why I'm hurting, why I'm going through this, and literally feel every single hurting emotion in order to get past it, you know?
Face the demons.
I think, I think, I give credit to where it's due. I think you were decisive that you wanted to heal. And I think internally you wanted to make sure and figure out what is the best way to move forward with these things. And so, yeah, it's sometimes internally, they say internal is decisive. Once we decide, things can change and things can happen. And so again, in terms of like what you said, like, time, it depends on what you do with your time.
Exactly.
And you chose with your time to really learn and what's happening with you, what are the things that's happening, and what's the best way to actually grow from it.
Yeah.
And so, and also like, I want to add on to like the aspect of the escapism, the idea that when you're going through some struggles, and there's a way to escape in terms of whatever other means to escape it, whether it's drugs, whether I've been through some struggles, and I had an addiction. I used to gamble. I was a big gambler, and the gambler in itself became a problem, right?
Yeah.
But in essence, that wasn't necessarily the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is really what was leading me to actually escape. And what am I escaping? What are the things that I'm escaping from? And so those are the things. That's what when we talk about like what are the root cause of the things. So like the using drugs is not necessarily, yes, it could be a problem, but then there's like deeper things that people are escaping from, and don't have the tools. To actually address what are the things that they're going through. And again, that's why it's important to have like mental health access to our communities, because a lot of our folks is more challenged economically in terms of their family, all those other things. So we need more access to like mental health resources in terms of like people of color community. And sometimes like for us, for our folks, for our community, our working class folks, we don't have the resources to actually be able to access these things, right?
Yeah.
To be able to like a counselor, all those other things, like a psychologist.
Yeah.
So, knowing that people, especially young people, go through a lot of these things, a lot of these struggles, emotional struggles, a lot of depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean to have access to actual mental health resources?
I couldn't even find help when I was going through that tough time, bro.
Right?
I couldn't. The only people that really helped me was my mentors, people around me. But when I tried finding help to a therapist, I was put on a wait list.
I remember you saying
A therapist stopped seeing me, bro. I had no help.
And it
whatsoever.
costs money.
Yeah,
It costs money,
for
man.
sure.
Yeah,
and like
it's
for
hard.
me, like, I'm sorry. Were you gonna say something?
Oh, go ahead.
For me, I tend to like to go things through my. I tend to like to go through things by myself because like I have this mentality of like no one's gonna fix it but me. I could ask for help. I could talk to somebody, but no one's gonna, do it unless I put it in my mind that I want to change and I want to be better. But I think, me going through research about like TED Talks and stuff like that, it would have just been nice to have someone to talk to,
Right.
That's
and
it.
like it's not me saying like, oh, I didn't have anyone to talk to, because I did have friends, I did have family and stuff, but sometimes it's like you want someone to talk to outside of your circle, because sometimes your circle can be biased and they just want you to be better, and their way of trying to make you better or make you feel better may not be the best for you, because they're just like, I just want you to feel better, like do this, do that, when it's like sometimes you need someone outside to be like, okay, this is what you actually need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say one thing personally, though. Obviously, at the end, to a certain degree, right? Everybody's in charge of their own path and their own healing, right?
Mhm.
But I don't know. for me, I'm a person of, in a sense, that likes to feel things, you know, and undergo through events and like, you know, like writing the emotions, that sort of stuff. So obviously, what you do with that time is important, but I think that we also need to reserve space and time to allow ourselves to feel what we're going through.
Yeah.
Because if we don't even reserve time or space to really feel what we're going through, then that just leads into a baseless and like non-rational route towards healing. You know what I'm saying? So like, definitely I agree with you. Agree with you folks in the sense that, you know, obviously like when it comes to that point where you're starting to feel a little bit more up and that sort of stuff, it's great to take charge and really go about finding healing. But I think we also have to acknowledge that you also need time and space to really feel what you're going through. You know?
And
So-
going off of that, I think that is what's difficult for people. They don't allow themselves to feel all of the emotions because that hurts, you know? Like, it's like, why would I want to put myself through so much pain? But like personally, when going through things, I always like to say, I'm glad I went through all that pain. I'm glad I went through all this because it's like, I got through it. I felt every single emotion until I was able to figure out a way to be okay with what I felt.
Yep.
And there's so much power in like, yeah, I felt so much pain, you know, like I felt so much pain, but I got through it.
Yeah.
And like, that's something that's very scary to people. And like, it's okay to feel all your emotions. You're a human being. Like,
You got to.
you
got
have to.
Yeah.
In a similar way to you described earlier, Simone, I also tend to try to deal with my problems or undergo situations by myself. And it's not necessarily in my case, it's not that I'm like, oh, I can get myself through it. It's more so in my case, it's always been like, oh, nobody else is going to understand or nobody else is going to like really know where I'm coming from. So, you know, I'm just going to see what I can do by myself, that sort of stuff. And so one of the avenues that I found really helpful was hip hop. And just trying to find an avenue, an escape, I guess, in a sense, of just feeling those emotions.
Yeah.
And for me, there's just something, I don't know how to describe it, but sometimes music hits me in a specific way. And sometimes I can, like, like, sometimes I will listen to a song that I probably have no relevance to that type of feeling. And somehow I'll feel it like just within myself, like, damn, I went through that. And it's like, no, you didn't. You just listened to the song and like somehow it away. Like I was listening to a song the other day on the radio. And it was You Broke Me First. And like I listened to it and I was like, I love the instrumental and then the message. And then I was listening to this while I was driving by myself. And I was just like, damn, bro, that motherfucker broke me first. And I was like, wait, hold on. He broke up with me. But it was just a certain type of profound feeling. And like, for me, I'm a big lyrics guy. I love hip hop, you know, lyricism. And so one of my go-to songs I can recall and that I listen to from time to time where it brings me back to those moments of hurting and pain is Sing for the Moment by Eminem.
Yup.
And it's towards the it's in the last verse. Let me see if I can remember. I'll probably look it up later. But like, yeah, he talks about how, you know, for other people, these rap artists might not mean shit to them, but it means shit to someone who's undergoing struggles. And it's who don't have a dream, so fucking rap magazine, who post painted pictures on their walls all day long, idolize their favorite rappers and know all their songs, or for anyone who's ever gone through shit to their lives, till they sit and they cry at night, wishing to die, till they throw on a rap record, they sing and they I fucking forgot.
No, I feel you
like
on that.
particular lyric just like hit me, and whenever I listen to that song from time to time, like it brings me back to that, and I'm just like, damn, I was literally that kid right there, where I've had moments where I've contemplated, you know, killing myself. But
he said
hip hop really.
okay.
But you know, hip hop became
it's real. It's real.
Yeah.
And I think like also I say this all the time, but like music gets you through things that no one else can. Like, like sometimes music is your best friend, and it can make you feel things that you don't even feel, you've never felt before. And just like, what the fuck? Like, if you've never been in love, a song could make you feel like you're in love, you know? And
Yeah.
I think, because me personally, music has gotten me through more things than like even some of my closest friends. And that's okay, It's like, no shit to my friends, like you guys are amazing, but like sometimes music hits different, and it's like
So-
someone's listening to you and it's like, wow, like you're going through this shit too, like same.
Yeah,
you know
I got a song for that. It goes 1 for the money, 2 for the ride, 3 for my people in the struggle getting by.
Yeah.
And it said, music makes me high.
Oh,
it does like music.
So
oh my God.
basically, yeah, I think for me in terms of music, like yo, my head be going crazy, right? It goes like 100 miles per hour. So, but I think when I have music around me, it lessened the activity in terms of my mind, and it keeps me busy. And I think in terms of like healing and struggling, like, that's an aspect of like coping mechanism.
Yeah.
What is our coping mechanism? How do we strengthen our coping mechanism? Because the aspect of coping is that, the other side of that coping mechanism that is, it can be destructive.
yeah
Because we're trying to cope with a specific emotion, so it can lead to destruction or destructive things, whether it's for us or for other people around us, versus like finding something that's more productive or more that serves your interest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So those are the things that we need to learn and like really figure out what is our own coping mechanism when we're going through different stresses and things like that. And so for me, yeah, music definitely like is one aspect of a coping mechanism when I'm going through some stuff. Like I just put on some music and I'm just like, yo, that's
like everything's fine. you
Yeah.
know and
it helps. It helps for sure.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
I feel like go ahead.
If I would say one line, if I want to get a good cry in, I just put on my Sim playlist.
Facts. No, yeah, really. And I think
Hey, you gotta let it out sometimes.
no, yeah, and
You know, man,
sometimes
that's
you just
it.
want to feel it. I just want to feel an emotion.
Drive
So
in
let
the
me
car
just
and start crying. lonely
Right?
night.
and like jumping off of like your coping mechanisms that you're talking about. I have this coping mechanism that's not necessarily bad. I don't think it's a bad coping mechanism.
Let's hear it.
But
What is
I make jokes out of my what hurts, not what hurts me, but like my trauma. I make jokes. I have a very
The
like,
thing that bothers you deal with it by humor.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's
I don't.
humor.
Okay, this sounds really like bad, and my cousin doesn't make the jokes anymore. But like, this is gonna lead to our next question. But my grandmother has passed away from cancer, and my cousin's grandma also passed away from cancer. And we have in our mom's side, we have a very my great grandma passed away from cancer, and pretty much all the sisters has cancer, has died from cancer, and a way to cope. Me and my cousin always make this joke like, oh yeah, when we're older, we're going to call each other up and be like, hey, you got cancer yet? Oh no. Okay, cool. Call you next week. Yeah. Like we don't make the joke anymore, but like
Right.
at the time, cause we both lost our grandmothers around the same time period, the same year with like a few months span. And we, what's this called? My grandma was like my favorite person in the world, and her grandma was her favorite person in the world too. So it was kind of just like we're going through the same shit, let's
Yeah, I feel you.
yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah. So for me, it's not really destructive because I've already like accepted, it all,
yeah.
but like it makes people uncomfortable because it's like, it's like, oh, why did you say that? Like, how could you say that?
Humor and comedy are like very prominent coping mechanisms,
Yeah.
and I will be the first person to say that humor/comedy is complex. So I will never jump the gun on a lot of things. But one thing that I have seen lately through like, and I'm not talking about like a year or like couple months, I'm talking about like, a couple of years.
Mhm.
But one thing that I've seen lately that bothers me is self-condescending humor or suicidal
Yes.
humor.
Mhm.
And for me personally, I'm not for it. I don't like it
Mhm.
because it might be like a temporary like this is my personal take, right? Obviously, but yeah, it might be a temporary relief, and you might get some giggles or cracks or whatever. But it's just sort of like once you're done with that tweet and you go back to yourself, what's that going to do for you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so like to each their own. If you want to do that, like I'm not gonna be your parent, do what you want. But for me personally, like I don't like that comedy. I don't like that humor. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It makes a lot of people very like uncomfortable. But like I feel like growing up with the family I've grown up with, we're all very much like that. Like even in the Philippines, everyone's going through so much shit. But when we're together, it's always laughs and giggles and we're joking around because it's like, what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
So that's where I think I got it from, just like laughing and stuff like that. Because even in the typhoons, people, me and my parents have been watching videos on people documenting the typhoons. And they're surprised how like people are just laughing and like, just living life, even though they're walking through so much water when it's like, what more can you do? Like you're already in the situation. It's not like you can't. Well, what's being sad gonna do for them walking through this thing, like, and all we have is like family. So
For sure.
might as well make the best of your time with them. Oh, next question. Sorry.
Because I got depression.
Oh my God, I love that song. It's so funny. Okay, anyways. Next question is, do you guys think that there are some things that you cannot heal from?
What are your thoughts?
Take it away, Kyle.
Hard.
You told me to take it away.
Right? We don't know.
There are some things, that is true. I feel like this could lead up to the other question too, but I feel like there are some things that you can deal from, and I'll probably talk about it with the next question because it goes with it. But I think losing someone really close to you, I think for myself is losing a parent. I feel like that in itself, like it's always be there and it will hurt a little bit. I'll accept it and I know I'm gonna see him again, but it still hurts here and there. There's some days are difficult, some days are not. Altogether, I feel like that's what it is for itself. As long as it doesn't really fully take over who you are as an individual and you let it destroy you, then it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. And I've had this talk a lot with a lot of other people who's lost a parent altogether at like a young age altogether, and they agree with me too. They all come up with the same thing, like some days are hard, some days aren't. That's how it is.
And I think it also goes back to what your personal definition of healing is. So if you're saying like, if you think that just having that little bit of pain and being able to accept what had happened but have it still hurt, if you think that's your definition of healing, then you can heal. But for some people, it's not healing. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like, I feel like it all depends if like you say you're healed or you don't say you're healed.
I just to kind of like, I guess, put it in a way, I use that darkness as fuel for myself. Right. I know like, oh shit, I've been through that. Everything else above from here, nothing can ever beat that ever.
Yeah.
That's what I use it. I use my pain, my frustration, my whatever it is from that towards whatever I do, and I use that as passion.
Yeah.
I think in terms of healing, like I think you have come to an acceptance stage, and I think that doesn't mean that it won't hurt anymore.
Yeah.
It's the pain is still there in terms of specifically, especially for a loss for a loved one. But I think you have come to a point of acceptance, and you use that in essence to empower you more. So I think for sure. Jonathan,
I was gonna say the one thing that popped up into my head was when you asked the question, as you mentioned earlier, there's a difference between healing and curing.
Yeah.
And so I was a little lost there just because based off of that premise set earlier. So bouncing off what Kyle said, I think this is tricky. I think healing, or as you mentioned too, Simone, I think healing comes at different levels to different folks because as Kyle mentioned, it's hard to completely heal from a loss, me having lost my brother too. I can say from personal experience, it's not something that will ever heal, but it's something that I try to strike or find balance with. There are some days where it can be hard, especially as birthdays, that sort of stuff. And then there's other days where, I'm focused in on what I'm doing, how I'm trying to strive in life. And so through that, it's sort of, I want to phrase it. It's sort of like paying homage to him.
Yeah.
And doing what I can because my brother didn't have the opportunities that I have right now. So it's just sort of like taking advantage of the opportunities I can do and do it in the name of him and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, sort of, as I mentioned earlier too, you know, balance and challenge, you know, so yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Next question. This one's kind of deep. Cuts a little deeper. What's the most painful thing that you had to heal from or are still healing from?
I guess just because, you know, I kind of answered it in the last one and y'all kind of got a sneak peek.
I think we all kind of answered it within this podcast.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
All right, that's the end of the podcast. Thank you for joining us. All right.
All right, so let's see. So that time span, which was, so it's the end of 2020 now. This was all throughout 2019.
Okay.
Oh no, I lost my dad in 2018 of September, but and I had to bury my own dad. I actually wasn't with him on his deathbed. He died in the Philippines. So I just remember like a phone call from him, and then I remember the plane ride there, 16-hour flight. I was alone. I was the first one to leave out of all the family to come to the Philippines. That was the longest journey of my life. And you know, you can't help to replay the memories and kind of understand things until you fully see him. So in Philippine culture, they put the coffin in the house until they bury the person. And once I saw him in the house, in that casket, I was like, shit, this is like my harsh reality from this point on. You know what I mean? I don't know how I'm going to survive. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I was like completely confused in a way. And following after that, went through a breakup, went through even more deaths within a span of a year. There was like 3 more, one of them including my grandma, which is my dad's mom. And that's when I kind of resorted to drugs and everything. That's when I told you all that. But I mean, that in itself was like probably the hardest thing altogether to kind of recover from. Because even after I thought I recovered, it still kind of bounced back in a way. But I mean, at the end of the day, the people who really lifted me up were those people who truly, really like cared about me and who really checked up on me. And it was a matter of making sure I got my physical health right, finding love in myself as a person and as an individual, and realizing the true power that I had as a person. You know what I mean? Other than that, I feel like I would have been 6 feet under, because that was just probably the darkest time of my life ever. But I think everything after that, it happened for a reason, because the person that I am now is something unimaginable and unspeakable of. Because if I were to talk to Kyle 2 years back going through that time, I would tell him, Kyle, keep fucking pushing forward, because you don't know what the hell is coming towards you from now on. And a lot of people always tell me too, like, damn, you got a lot ahead of you, Kyle. And I feel like I really do, because, you know, that pain and that struggle is literally my fuel. Without it, I don't know where I would be right now. That's probably the hardest thing I've ever been through, burying my own pops.
Does anyone go next? This is very tough for us, guys. We're being very, very vulnerable.
I think for me, answering both questions is, you know, like, can you ever heal? And also, what's the hardest thing that you had to heal?
Yeah.
And I think I talked about it in terms of like healing in essence is like, it's an ongoing thing. Mm-hmm. It's a process. It's never like, I'm done with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's still an ongoing thing. So I wanted to answer that question and make an example. I think, you know, I grew up from a broken family. Mom and dad was not around. It was my grandma that raised me. Everything about me is like I learned from my grandma. You know, the hard work, the struggle, the selflessness, and all those things is really from what I saw in terms of like my own, you know, growing up. And so, and then the idea that because my mom and dad wasn't around, and then because we lived in poverty in the Philippines, and we would have to move around all the time. So in terms of like the question of like, what is it like that you're still healing from, or hardest to heal, whatever have you, is that I have a hard time losing people that I care about, because, you know, I would move from places to places. So I would like have to say goodbye to people all the time, you know, all those things. And I was never around my own parents. So then I have to say goodbye to them, all those things. And so those are the things that I'm still learning for myself and continuing to understand. What does it mean, like, you know, how I value relationship? And so then that plays out to this day. And, you know, again, looking at our childhood experience, you know, is that one aspect is that I grieve like losing a relationship, especially when I'm close to someone, and then for whatever happens, whether it's my own contradiction that plays a role into that relationship breaking down, the essence of losing that relationship is really weighs heavy on me. And so, yeah. So I have an example. It's for the example. So I used to work at this place, and I used to have my best friend at the workplace was my supervisor, and she was at the same age as me, and we got really close, and for 5 years we were really close. But I think at some point I started to have a crush on her. And so I think I sat down with her and said, I just want to let you know, you're awesome, you're cool, I really like you, and I want to maintain our friendship, but I just want to express that I really like you, you're cool.
Yeah.
But I think from that point, she just went cold on me.
Yeah.
So does it?
I would too. I'd be like, oh no.
But I get that aspect of that's really on me, and how it would look in terms of the working relationship, and how women would feel uncomfortable in terms of So I was processing all those things. So, but the essence of that struggle is that I lost a good friend that I thought was really close to me, and basically she went cold on me. And so I in terms of the 5 stages, I went to grief. I was sad, and then there's that process of going through each stage. Whether it's the denial, whether it's the bargaining aspect, and trying to okay, maybe I can do this to appease the relationship, right, or maintain the working relationship. And then at some point, I got depressed. I was depressed about the idea of losing the relationship, and so then it took me a minute. It took me a minute to go through it and learn, and then come to accept that it's okay, losing a relationship. But that is the main trigger for me when I go off in terms of different relationship breaking down. And so that really sets me off in terms of being depressed, feeling some type of way, and then I have to go through this whole thing. And then so now I have to keep an eye on myself in terms of creating a coping mechanism and not doing something self-destructive and all those things. So yeah, that's an ongoing process for me to learn what does it mean to lose people around me, and then what does it mean to actually cope and be able to understand what my role in terms of those relationships and my own contradiction, how it plays out. So yeah, and to answer those both questions. So yeah.
Cool. Jonathan?
Jonathan.
I don't know. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, still healing from having lost my brother, and so and hearing Kyle share how his situation played out, kind of reminded me about how I went to school on March 29th, 2012, and at this point, my brother's cancer had already got him pretty bad, and so my brother was pretty much bedridden. And so I just remember I was actually in the same room. I just remember him being in the bed, and just I didn't know at the time he was just on his last fighting breaths, or whatever bit of life he had left. And so I just remember waking up in the morning, and so I was just oh yeah, I had breakfast, and then I went to go see my brother, and I was just sort of hey, how you doing? Hang in there. You've been through this twice. You can get through it. You're a real champion. You're a real fighter. Don't nobody else have anything on you, that sort of stuff. And so I went to school, and I came back. My friend at the time, I used to give him rides back to his house, and just sort of an agreement we had between his parents and my parents. And so we dropped them off. And so I kind of found it weird how in the truck that my parents own, my dad was driving, my mom was driving, so they're in the front seats, and then my friend and I were in the back. And so I found it weird how, like, after we dropped my friend off, my parents had me pull up in the front because it was like 6 seats. And so they had me, come into the middle. And so I just remember I just remember my dad pulling up into my driveway. And then it was just sort of like, oh, like, this is going to be hard to tell you. And like right then and there, like, my heart just shattered. And so it's like probably one of the hardest memories to like come back to, and like I didn't expect him to be gone that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing that it's bittersweet, but like the thing that broke me so much was the fact that before I left to school, my last words were, "I love you."
Yeah.
And I'm glad that, I had a chance to say my final words, but like,
same, bro. I feel you.
Mm.
I feel you, man.
I don't know. I don't got much else to say.
That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I remember flying down from the plane, coming back from the Philippines. I saw like my own mom cry and everything, dude. So I'm telling you, man, these struggles that we go through is a part of it. We have to see it in order to be our best selves.
Yeah.
He's for sure living in you, bro. I feel that energy in you. I feel the same with my pops, my grandma as well too, man. 100%, bro. 100%.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dad.
It's all good,
Yeah,
man.
you're good.
You're good, bro.
It's all good, bro.
Thanks for sharing, and thanks for
Yeah.
being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That takes courage to do that.
A lot of courage, bro.
And I think I think it's a beautiful thing that we have a safe space here amongst us
Yeah.
to be able to actually be vulnerable and share with one another in terms of the things that we're going through. And I think, and then how that plays out in terms of like to our listeners, and so yeah, I think this is good. Like, yeah.
I think one thing with the universe too, Jonathan, is with these things that happen, I think it happens for a reason. Maybe there was a reason for us not being right there on their deathbed, the way I think about it, or otherwise, if it did play out that way, we could have become very self-destructive after that. Because it's a hard thing to see sometimes, seeing someone you love so much die right next to you.
Yeah.
So I think that higher power was there in favor for us altogether, and it playing it in a way where we had an opportunity to say I love you. I think that in itself is very powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
I guess it's my turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna cry too. But yeah, like hearing your story, Kyle, is kind of just the whole time I tried not to cry because I was just like pictures, just remembering like the similarities that I had went through when I lost my grandma. I'm like trying not to cry, but it was her she passed away in the Philippine time, I think March 9th. Same day and time as my aunt had passed away a few years. I think it was her 3rd year anniversary when she passed away. So yeah, this is hard. Oh my gosh, I don't want to cry. Okay. Oh my god, this is so hard for me.
It
Oh my
is
gosh,
hard,
why is it so
yeah.
hard?
It's not easy.
Sorry guys, just give me a moment. I can't even speak. What the hell? So my grandma, I already touched on it, but she had cancer, and we kind of knew that like her time was nearing. So oh my gosh, Jonathan, stop crying because that's like why I'm crying some more. But I'm a very like emotional person.
Yeah.
But it was around February when like my parents were like, okay, like we kind of have to go now because we were gonna go I think in the summer, but there was just like not enough time, and so I went there first because I couldn't stay for as long because I had school and everything. So I'm just flying over there and like knowing that like it was like sorry guys, it was like my last time seeing her. Like oh my gosh, that hurts so bad because I was like dang, like at least I get to see her, you know, because you know not very many people have the chance to actually just like fly over there to see their dying like you know grandma or like family relative. So I'm glad I did. And when I landed on the when I landed we went to the house and I saw her and like sorry guys this is so hard for me to explain. Oh my gosh, it like played out so much better in my head. Like I was like staying in like not even crying, but I think it was like the way her like face lit up when like she saw me like broke me so much because I had never seen my grandma, you know, like be in her deathbed like that. Like it was just like a hard thing to like really accept that she was not going to be there for long. And like I remember just like hugging her and like trying not to cry and saying yeah I'm here now, because ultimately like that's what she was waiting for. She was waiting for like my family to be there and just you know she was just hanging on for just a little bit more for us. And yeah, I got to see her and like her face just lighting up just made my like it made my day, and it also made my heart break really. And yeah, the whole time I was there, because I'm whenever we visit the Philippines, I'm usually the one that sleeps next to my grandma in her room. And I just remember like waking up like in the middle of the night sometimes, like seeing if she's okay, like is she okay, like oh she's coughing, like someone get her ice or whatever. But I think what really was hard was I had to leave early because I had school and my parents were still staying there for a little longer. And the day I left, I hugged her for like the last time. And I just like remember just looking like into her eyes and then her looking away. And like after she let go of me, and then I knew I had to go to the airport, and just that long ass fucking plane ride the whole way home, it was just like wow, like that was the last time I was ever gonna see my grandma. And it was just very very like painful. I was just like why, like this sucks, you know, like this is so like fucked up, like what the hell, like I'm on a freaking plane for like how many hours, like over 16 hours, just knowing that my grandma's going to be dead soon. And it was just like really just freaking painful. And I remember staying home alone and just thinking like okay, like I'm gonna call tomorrow morning, see how everyone's doing, you know. And since the time the time difference was like 4 a.m. here, and then over there like it's whatever time. I remember one morning I was like okay, I'm gonna set my alarm to 3 a.m. because I have to call. I don't know why that certain day like I decided like okay, like I really need to call. So then 3 a.m. came, I called, no answer. I kept calling. I was like okay, like what's going on, why isn't everyone answering my phone? And then finally my dad had answered. And apparently there's a power outage, and during that power outage like fireworks were going off and everything in the Philippines because there was this event going on. And pretty much like my dad was telling me like oh like she's gone. And at the time I had called, she wasn't dead yet, but it was her last breath that she was taking. And while I was on the phone, everyone was gathered around in the room, and she was struggling to like breathe. And my grandpa had walked into her room, and he did a little cross on her head, and as he finished putting the cross on her head, she took her last breath, like literally took her last breath. She went, and then that was it. And they had to take her, to the morgue to get examined and all that. And I just remember like bursting into tears, like on the phone. I just could not handle it, because here I am, like sitting in my living room all alone, knowing like my grandma had just passed away, and like I was on the phone while she passed away, and they told me, my mom was like, say goodbye to mama. And I was just like, why am I saying bye? Like, why am I saying bye to her? Like, and it was just so painful. Like, God, but like what Kyle had mentioned, like using this as like, strength or whatever, I kind of like see it as, nothing could ever hurt me like that has hurt me. So I kind of use that as like a day-to-day thing, like, oh, you broke my heart, that's fine, because I've been through worse, like just kind of using it as my strength, as like my motivation. That was such a long and hard story to tell. I'm sorry, guys.
That's all good.
But yeah, and I think what made it 10 times harder was the fact that what my like grandma meant to me, because to me she was kind of my rock in a sense that tied me to this world. Not, I don't want to say it, this sounds kind of weird, but she was really the person that I felt the most myself and like okay with, because when I was very young and my parents were still going to school, my grandma was the one that was taking care of me. She was the one that was she pretty much raised me from at a very young age. And when we had moved here, every time we would go back to the Philippines, I would just think like, oh, it's okay. Like, I'm excited to see her. Like, I have all my family there, but like my mind was like, oh, I get to see my mama, like I get to see her. And every time I would be going through something, like, just like going through life and having a difficult time, I would always think of her, because every time I was like around her, it was like nothing else mattered in the world. So that's how she was to me. And to have someone like that, like kind of like taken away from you, it just really just hurts, so
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
In my situation, similarly, where my brother was my comfort zone, and my brother and I were a year and a half like age difference. So, my brother being the older one, I always had this like relationship with him where when it came to life, he was the first one to go through things. So like the transition from like elementary school to middle school, or middle school to high school, I always had this sense of security because I didn't know what to expect. But my brother was able to report back to me in a sense, just telling me like, oh, this is what I've learned and this is how I see things and this is kind of the way things go. And I was like, okay, cool. So it kind of gave me a sense of preparation. And and in another way, my brother to me kind of represented a type of relationship and physical embodiment of the saying ignorance is bliss, because I felt like, when he was around, I was able to sort of be comforted and, enjoy my childhood and all that sort of stuff, not really knowing much about the world and that sort of stuff. But then, upon his passing, like it literally felt like reality struck me, because everything just kind of came like, I guess in a sense, like all these walls of ignorance, not necessarily walls that I built, but just sort of like those walls that were built around me, all those walls were struck down and reality came crashing. And so I just kind of, upon his passing, I was exposed to the real world and, having to figure this stuff out on my own. So, especially when it came to like high school to college, that was so hard for me because, as I mentioned, you know, I had these guidelines and these sort of like tips and, you know, tricks moving forward, but college being one of the monumental steps in a person's life, if they choose to go, like that's a whole ass experience in of itself. And just, I've always felt like I've had to like figure shit out on my own. And so.
Okay, that was very deep. Sorry, guys. No, I'm not sorry. I'm just like, you know. What else did I want to say? I think I lost my train of thought. But I think a very how do I want to say this? I think a very common thing that we all have is the loss of someone, and it's funny how like not funny, but it's ironic that we all came together, you know, creating this, and we all have the same thing that that's hard for us to heal from, or that's the hardest thing we've had to heal from. I just found that very interesting, and how like death really brings people together too. Just crazy. But yeah, thank you guys for listening into our vulnerability.
Very difficult.
This was so difficult. I did not expect myself to cry. I thought I was like, okay, I'm just gonna talk about it. And it's gonna be okay, right?
Go to the club, he said.
I was like, okay, like why can't I speak? But this goes to show how like even though like, you know, you've healed from things, it can still trigger you, and it can still make you
exactly
like, you know, which is okay. You know, I'm not gonna beat myself up because I'm like, dang it, I cried. You know, like
We're welcoming Simone to the Tear Club.
yeah.
Me and Mike is up next. Me and Mike is up next. Who knows? When will it be?
Right.
Come soon to the next podcast.
I think also I wanted to add. I forgot now. Never mind. It was just in my mind.
Oh, okay.
But
You good? All right.
yeah, I think so. I don't think it was important.
Okay.
Might have been, but it's fine.
So next week we got a very special guest where we'll do an interview portion. We'll save it for next week. I'm going to tell y'all who. And he's going to be covering a lot about physical health altogether, which kind of corresponds with this topic and what we touched in today. Thank y'all for listening to PYB Podcast.
Yup. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Many tears. And I feel like that was our longest episode
Yeah.
so far.
Follow us at PYB Podcast. You feel me?
See y'all
We
next
out.
week. Bye.